Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to give 1 minute for people to join, and we'll be starting right off. So hang in there, 1 minute, and we're going to kick this off. Thank you for being here. Hi, everyone. I know people are joining right now. We're giving it just 1 minute. We're going to kick this off. So hang in there. We'll be starting shortly. And here we are at the 1 minute mark. So we want to make sure we're on time. So hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on moving beyond VMware. Today, we're going to be having a discussion on the subject. My name is Karen Hassim. I am Product Enablement Specialist here at NetApp. And today I am joined by Ben Lipman from AWS, Paul Gordon, and Rajesh Reedy from Matilda. So first of all, I want to introduce Ben. Ben has over 25 years of experience in the storage space, especially in virtualization. He is currently a solution specialist, solution architect, um, and he focuses on migration and modernization. He's been at AWS for over 9 years. He comes with a wealth of knowledge, and he's particularly knowledgeable about VMware workloads. So welcome, Ben. Happy
Thanks,
to have you
Karen.
here. And then from the Matilda team, we have Rajesh. He's the co-founder. We're very lucky to have him here join us today. He's co-founder and CTO at Matilda Cloud. Um, and Matilda is really continuous AI powered assessment and automation platform. So welcome, Rajesh.
Thank you, Karen. Happy to be here.
Yes, great. And also joining him, we have Paul Gordon. He's the director of product marketing at Matilda, and he leads the go-to-market strategy and partner enablement. So welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Karen. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Great. And really, just to start off this session, we're going to be talking about VMware workloads, what are the options for those VMware workloads, and the importance of choosing the right storage for your particular situation. Um, a bit of housekeeping. We're going to be sharing our recording with you. So don't worry. And if you have questions along while we're talking and we're having the conversation, feel free to send us your questions through the Q&A. And at the end of the session, we will also have, we'll open the mic and we'll be answering those questions as well. Um, and with that, I want to start off with a poll. We want to gather a little bit about you guys. Um, have you heard about Matilda? Have you heard about FSX for NetApp ONTAP before this webinar? Are you familiar with it? Have you heard about it? You don't know a lot about it. And it's your first time hearing this name, FSX for ONTAP. And the second question is, where are you in your VMware migration journey? Are you just starting? You're planning to move? Are you now migrating or you've already migrating? So let us know. Let's see how we're doing with those questions. It's just to gauge your knowledge and where you're at in the process and this journey, um, and how knowledgeable you are about the product that we'll be discussing today. So it's good to hear that almost half already uh, are familiar with our product. Um, and then I'm also happy to hear that a lot of you are starting to explore because I think this is the right, um, we're going to be touching on that subject and it's going to give you some guidance. So That's great. Let's kick it off. All right. So just to start off, VMware on premises, you have a, you have the commercial applications. It goes all the way to databases, unstructured, relational. It's out there. There's a lot of penetration of VMware, and there's a lot of companies that are starting to look at options for their virtualized workloads. So that gets me to cloud migration and what are the options out there and why customers start to look for options in the cloud. And Ben, can you help us out with that?
Yeah, that's a great place to start, Karen. So, I think this really had an uptick when Broadcom completed the acquisition of VMware. According to a Gartner survey among their community, I think it was 73% of customers of VMware are reevaluating that hypervisor platform. And we are seeing quite a lot of interest in the AWS pathways conversation. We'd like to get out of our data center. We'd like to move to AWS. And this is a great slide because really the migration, it's an objective, it's a business objective. That's not really the value. The value is what you're seeing on the side there, unlocking AI and analytics value that maybe your data holds, that you're having trouble building inside your own data center, or modernization, right? The migration is something we need to do. The modernization is something we want to do, right? So that's the story I'm hearing from customers. And that's usually where I pick up with them and start the conversation.
Yeah. And there are several pathways to the cloud. So let's go over them. Like there's a bunch of options out there with AWS. Can you go over them with me?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the slide we always lead with. We're not going to focus on the bottom of the pie here today. And we really at AWS we want to see folks get as modern as they choose to, right? So if you can refactor your app right from the data center to the cloud, that's wonderful. And sometimes we can, but often we take more of a lift and shift pattern to get out of the data center, and then we do a modernization, right? So we'll take our VMware VMs. We'll migrate them over as EC2 instances, VM to VM one-to-one, and then we'll start refactoring them. Some of these workloads are a little easier, like a file server. You can just replicate that right to the cloud to a fully managed file service, or maybe you're ready to go to RDS for a managed relational database, and we just replicate SQL to SQL or Oracle to Oracle, and we'll take a replatforming, which gets us up that modernization stack. But sometimes customers are really kind of looking at that two-step motion, right? So VMware to EC2, and then we start looking how do we modernize up the stack. Now, of course, some customers, if you're on OpenShift today and you love that, we have ROSA, Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS, and that's a really easy relocate migration. Or maybe it's VMware to Nutanix because you're not ready to get rid of your own control over that customizable hypervisor, right? But really, from an AWS standpoint, we're seeing customers that want to go up this stack and start refactoring their applications and really unlocking value with things like serverless architecture and containers and move out of that VM mindset.
Mm-hmm. And really, it's really as you said, it's really a phased approach. Like normally, customers will not jump right in, all in, and just get away from VMware. So it's really like it's step by step. And this is just an example, but it kind of shows how a customer might progress to the cloud, right? This is kind of a good sample of the progress or the approach that customers might take. Um, all right. So definitely one thing that customers usually when they're thinking about moving to the cloud, they think about the compute, but they kind of leave storage like a second level. They don't think about straight up about storage, but storage is very important. Can you help us understand why?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has storage, right? So it's there. And I think it's a shame if it's an afterthought, because like you said, sometimes we just focus on the compute. All right, we're going to move this machine to EC2, and an EC2 uses an elastic block store EBS volume, and we just do this one-to-one migration pattern, but really the conversation should be a one-to-many mindset, right? If you think of a decision tree where, Elastic Block Store may be one of your options, and for boot volume, that really makes sense. But especially for things like a high-performance database, you may have other choices, and there may be additional value you can unlock. For example, a database file is often 90% compressible. So why not let the storage array do that? And then at that point, you've got SnapMirror to protect the storage. You can make clones through API calls. So it's really um, trying to land on the right storage decision first so that we don't make this mistake of just moving to the cloud and treating it like our colo or a data center and then walking away from it and then saying, oh, shoot, we could have optimized this. Now let's do another project and just kind of fix the disk layer because we didn't really think through it very carefully. So when AWS suggests an optimization license assessment, an OLA, like through a partner like Matilda, we always want to do a storage assessment too.
It's super important, and it really determines how fast your applications will run, right? How much you will pay like it can impact your bottom line. So it's really, really important. And especially for those that are not so knowledgeable about the cloud, make sure that your assessment includes storage. I think that's the message that I would like you to take with you. Make sure your assessment includes storage, and that includes also FSXN, but we'll get to that in a second. We know that VMware migrations has its challenges. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that kind of goes back to we can absolutely treat AWS like a data center or a colo, but sometimes that's not the most cost optimal way or the most efficient way, or maybe you're missing out on some features, right? So that's really what we want to break people out of is this mindset that we just go VMware to EC2 and then we walk away and the job is done, right? So that's just the basic migration, one-to-one mapping challenge. But some of these customers that we see have really advanced systems. I was on a call today where a customer was triggering database snapshots from their Linux database VM so that they could have database consistent snapshots. And I was like, wow, that's really an interesting use case. Let's unpack that. So they really needed to be able to call down into a storage API, or on this case on-prem, they were able to use VMware snapshots that triggered an array snapshot. So some of these things are a bit challenging to recreate exactly on-prem. So we kind of have to unpack those use cases and analyze all the different options. And really, it's the benefit and it's the challenge with AWS. We want to give everyone tons of options, but then the question is, how do I choose the right one, right? How do I
Right.
compare A from B or C from D and decide TCO, feature analysis, what is the right decision to make? And that's really where we're unlocking a lot of value with this assessment. They'll look at all the different storage services and say, you could use either of these. They're all fit for purpose, but this one may be a little better of a choice than another.
Yeah, and actually, I think you nailed it. Like AWS is such a specialized, you know, you have a lot of specialized products, and you need to find the right fit for you. It's not one size fits all. And really, one of the products that we're presenting today is FSx for ONTAP, and it really does a lot of things. And I love when you say it's like the Swiss Army knife, sorry. Swiss Army knife of storage. And it does a bunch of stuff, and it's a really cool product. So yeah, definitely we have a great product in our hands, and it helps you throughout that journey. So here you can see, if you wherever you start, you can continue to use the same, underlying storage. And I don't know if you want to add something to that in terms of the
Yeah,
benefit of
I
being
mean,
able to continue
for
using the same storage.
For anyone that's using ONTAP today on-prem, I would immediately suggest FSx for NetApp ONTAP in AWS because you can just do a like for like snap mirror based migration, and then you're actually not only lifting and shifting your data, but also your skill set, that familiarity with that storage array. But then, additionally, someone that's on a different storage array on-prem, they may have these enterprise grade features that they're really accustomed to using, and we want to make sure that we're showing them that feature parity in the cloud, and ONTAP is probably going to be what we would suggest in that case because it can do snapshots, clones, it can do deduplication, compression, compaction, right? So it does all these different things. And from a protocol standpoint, like you're saying, the Swiss Army knife is a great analogy. So it could be a data store for something like EVS, but it could also be something that's just presenting in-guest block storage. With VMware, we use RDMs or in-guest iSCSI, for example. So an EC2 can consume iSCSI volumes from ONTAP, and you can just present giant block volumes to do things like clustering, ASM, failover clustering, where you need that volume locking capability. But then all your file protocols too, SMB and NFS. So your containerized workloads, for example, those usually want NFS. For your user and group shares and home directories, that's typically SMB, right? So we keep coming back to ONTAP can do it, right? That may be the answer. But then someone may ask, like, what about EFS or what about Lustre or where are the use cases that make sense for all these services? So that's where we go back to that storage assessment. So we can say good, better, best and help inform that customer to make the right decision the first time rather than just kind of doing the easy thing and not thinking about it and then having another project after they've migrated.
Yeah. So kind of going back, because we've been talking about Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP, but I'm not sure everybody knows because we saw that not everybody is familiar with the product. So can we just really fast go over what Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP is?
Absolutely. Yeah, because like you said, some people may not be too familiar with it. So the first thing and the most important thing is it's an AWS native service, right?
Mm.
So for support, you're calling AWS, you consume it in the AWS console. We work together really closely with NetApp when customers have like these advanced snapshot questions and things like that. So really, you're getting the power of AWS and NetApp. And from a product standpoint, what you really need to know is it's a fully featured ONTAP platform, right? So you get all of the feature compatibility. It's just like your on-prem array. It's just built from native AWS constructs. So yeah, it's a native service. You consume it in the console. AWS supports it, and you have this team effort to help collaborate when there's these advanced use cases that customers are looking for. But yeah, if we kind of go left to right, we talked about that Swiss Army knife. It's all of the different protocols you could want. iSCSI, NVMe over TCP. I mean, obviously, we don't have Fiber Channel in the cloud. That would be cool if we did. But so all these network protocols will work that run over Ethernet. But then SMB, NFS, so it can really do all of the different things you might want to do.
Mhm.
And then the high availability disaster recovery snapshots, that's another big one, right? So that resilient story. Some customers will even use snapshots instead of backups or snapshots in conjunction with backups. So that's a really interesting thing. I know Commvault, for example, can trigger an array snapshot and then just read off of the array instead of holding that snapshot that it would have otherwise taken from whatever it was protecting. So yeah, all of these different things are the various facets that we look through to evaluate the fit of the product for that customer and their use case.
Yeah, and I think here, can I think you touched on it. These are like the key things. I think that the ones where we super shine for VMware with the multi-protocol, with the resiliency, the multi-Z, all of those goodies, the ARP, autonomous ransomware protection, um, thin clones, the duplication, all of that. I mean, I think it's amazing all of the capabilities that are wrapped up within this one product. Um, and that takes us up to the assessment. And it's the first step to your journey into AWS. And it's super critical to make sure that your assessment includes FSxN What would happen if, Ben, before we let you go and we move into the Matilda team, what would happen? What happens? What can be like the repercussions for a customer if they, let's say, the best fit would be FSXN, but then they end up going to another storage? What the, let's say, the impact?
Sure. Like I have a perfect customer story for this. So I was working with a customer
Mhm.
that was on-prem with a really critical system. It was a SQL database, and it was like 8 TB. This customer needed two different things. They were getting rid of their DR data center and they were migrating to AWS. In this case, it was a VMware to VMware use case, and so what they were doing is using asynchronous replication to backhaul the entire storage array, but then their use case also included refreshing lower level environments, so they could take that 8 TB production database and make new copies of dev, test, and QA. And if you think about this, all right, what if I just drop this on EC2, I use Elastic Block Store, EBS volumes, and then I use my normal backup restore software to do the copies, and then maybe I'm just using asynchronous SQL replication for the disaster recovery portion. That sounds fine, right? Well, 8 TB to back up and restore, that's probably going to take like 12 hours per copy. And that whole time you're just hammering on the network, you're beating up the disk. So that is one way to do it, but maybe it's not the best way. So with this customer, what they were able to do is take sand snapshots and clone that, so that there was an exact deduplicated copy. So only changed blocks actually took up any space, and they're able to make 3 different copies of that 8 TB database in less than a minute through CLI commands. So right then and there was a huge night and day functional difference between choosing one pattern versus another, both of which seemed fine on paper until you really got into the technical nuance of how would this play out. And what would be unfortunate is finding that out the hard way after you've already migrated and say, wait a second, we have our team sitting here babysitting backup and restore processes for days just to do something that we could do in 30 seconds on-prem. So that's a perfect use case for choosing the features and functionality, and then even the cost, I think, because the all those copies were deduplicated. There was only one copy really, and then just the changed blocks. So it was a huge TCO win as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. That's a great example. All right. Thank you, Ben. Moving on to talking about Matilda. Let's ask our team, our audience, about Matilda. Are you familiar with Matilda, and do you currently use any cloud assessment tools? Let us know where you're at. Are you using cloud assessment tools? Yes, occasionally, not yet. And are you familiar with Matilda? Let's see how we're doing there. And let's give it a minute for people to answer. We really want to know about you. I don't know, Rajesh and Paul. You're welcome to join in the conversation once we start presenting Matilda. Just jump in. I'll ask Paul questions, but also Rajesh, you can also participate. So here we are. Um, all right. So a lot of people are not using cloud assessment tools, and a lot of people are not familiar with Matilda. So all right, so it's good that we're having this conversation actually. Um, so let's see, let's move on. So I know there's some news about Matilda. I want to start off with that. So I don't know, Paul, do you want to let us know what's going on with Matilda?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Karen. Really enjoying this conversation so far. So, up front, Matilda is a trusted AWS partner. We have dozens of strategic partnerships in the industry, and we've done thousands of funded assessment, migration, and modernization projects with
Mhm.
AWS and our partners who are SIs, GSIs, and MSPs. When I say that the projects are funded, I'm saying the platform is funded by AWS via the MAP and OLA programs. So those are lowering barriers and enabling service partners to have a better understanding of customer environments, whether that's an on-prem environment or in the cloud, existing AWS, hybrid, or multi-cloud. So
Okay,
all these
so
assessment,
wait,
yep.
I wanted to ask you, regarding
Mhm.
MAP and OLA, I hope everybody knows, but I do know, but just kind of highlight what that is. It's
Yeah,
migration.
MAP is a migration assessment where the Matilda licenses and some of the service fees are compensated by AWS, which is funding these in order to help kickstart projects that customers may be deliberating but not taking action on. And then the OLA program is the optimization and licensing, and that's more of a scoping and assessment, not as much of the migration, but just trying to understand what the customer has in their environment. So Matilda licenses are covered for all of those use cases.
Okay, that's good to know. Of course, they need to be approved by AWS first, but definitely it's good to know that those programs are there and in place, and you can get funded.
Yeah, the key to taking advantage of these is to have your service partners, SIs, GSIs, and MSPs that are qualified to take advantage of those funds with AWS that are partnered and that have the certifications. And then the other thing is to ask those questions early on in the process to make sure that those funding discussions are happening up front and not retroactively.
Yeah, good tip. All
Um,
right, so
so
now, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to say all of these assessments are now including the FSX for ONTAP, which is we're going to get into in a minute. So whether they're considering a migration to AWS or if they're doing an on-place assessment on an existing AWS environment, these customers or organizations are looking to optimize or future-proof their estates, and they can get Matilda's independent analysis to understand what it could look like to migrate and what they could save and what services would work for them.
Okay, okay. So what is Matilda? Let
Yes. So,
explain.
so what's so special? Yeah. So
Yes, what's
Matilda
so special?
Cloud is essentially it's a really robust and powerful assessment and automation tool for the entire cloud lifecycle. There are other assessment tools, but Matilda is really unique in the industry because of the way we do our assessments. We're looking at the applications as the core unit of analysis instead of just the infrastructure. And by doing it that way, we're ensuring the highest level of continuity for organizations by protecting their applications, their IP. So what Matilda does is we're comprehensively mapping any environment and helping to fully understand the dependencies of all the applications, services, infrastructure, storage, and other services networking, and that way we can consider different configurations and what paths we can take to get there. So you get migration scenarios, you get modernization recommendations, you get cost savings and different services you can take and others. We also offer a lot of flexibility for our customers. So not every organization has the same priorities or objectives, whether it's really speed or continuity or cost savings. So rather than just suggesting a one size fits all solution, Matilda enables organizations and their service partners to have highly informed conversations throughout their process to decide what's the best path forward for them. So this is
Mhm.
true not only for the migration recommendations, but also for things like the deployment model. So one thing that's really important to our customers is that other assessment tools, there's only a SaaS deployment option. And for a lot of enterprises, that won't work for security reasons. So Matilda offers a SaaS, an on-prem, and a fully offline deployment. And the partner and the organization get to determine what's the best path for them, along with Matilda, who has a lot of experts to help guide this. And you'll see that flexibility when you work with Matilda throughout a lot of our decisions. We're doing any source environment, not just cloud to cloud, but we'll look at on-prem, and there's just a bunch of flexibility that we use in our approach.
Okay, that's good. And tell me something. So let's say with the current changes in licensing coming from VMware and people looking for options, um, Matilda, when you do the assessment, you identify which workloads are best candidates for immediate move to the cloud or to FSx for ONTAP, for that matter?
Yeah, so this conversation is about storage in a big way today, but
Mhm.
Matilda is not just about storage. It's really a comprehensive assessment for migration, modernization, compliance initiatives, cloud ops, cost savings, FinOps, and optimization. And Rajesh will get into some of those details as well. It's not just giving you the VMs for migration. It's giving you a lot of different recommendations and reports that will guide the executive level decision-making process, as well as the tactical replatforming or migrating approach that you're using. A partner can really, it's a really robust tool set in the hands of skilled practitioners and partners. So the SI partners is really designed to give them all the capabilities and automate a lot of steps in the process. And it's giving you this comprehensive application focused approach for everything around your applications. And so that's going to include the storage assessments, the modernization opportunities, different solutions that you can take on. And you don't have to take a recommendation. You can take the recommendation and evaluate with your partner or your customer on exactly how you want to move forward. And so we're really not a one size fits all approach. And we're going to show you where you can take advantage of the specialized products that you and Ben were talking about earlier. It's like FSxN or even ROSA or container solutions or platform as a service. A lot of different solutions are identified.
Okay, that's great. Um, can you talk about what are the deliverables of that assessment?
Yeah, when it comes to storage, well, let's talk at a higher level first. So you're going to get a complete inventory analysis. That's what you see here, the servers, OS, memory, storage, networking. Then you're going to get the application level summaries and cost projections, savings analysis, right sizing, provisioning and over provisioning. You're going to get at the beginning of the process, we'll talk in a minute about the different assessment modes. But at the beginning of projects, we can do a rapid assessment, which is going to give you a high level cost analysis, a high level risk analysis, helping to guide whether it's worth considering different options. And then as if you want to use the real-time assessment, whether that's in place AWS or whether you're doing that on an on-prem environment or however you're using it, then you're going to get those detailed dependency maps that are going to give you wave groups, basically all the recommendations you need to ensure continuity of your applications throughout the project. It'll identify which workloads are able to migrate in which waves and where you want to consider rehosting and doing a like for like, kind of the apples to apples, or whether you
Mhm.
want to consider an apples to oranges or a refactoring or replatforming different modernization approaches. It's going to suggest that 5R strategy.
Okay. And that takes me to the next question. How long does it take to do an assessment?
Yeah, the automated assessment tools that you're going to use, they're all going to be fast. Matilda is very fast. There's no exception. I'm talking a lot about the comprehensive nature,
Mhm.
but it really is compressing timelines for organizations, and that's a huge draw for why you should take advantage of these assessments. So if you're doing a cloud to cloud assessment, we're able to do that really quickly. It says 1 week. There's a report that's generated, which Rajesh will go through, where it's going to detail the course of action and different recommendations and risks that you're looking at. And that's
Mhm.
happening up front. And there's so a report that you'll get very quickly within a week for AWS migrations. That's also if you have a VMware environment, you can do an RV tool extract and also take advantage of that report. For the on-prem to AWS, the 2 to 4 weeks listed there, that's a given time frame where we recommend using the real-time in-place assessment or real-time assessment for on-prem to AWS. And that's going to
Mhm.
do the deep assessment that's looking at the dependency mapping and wave group planning to show exactly what the migration or modernization project would look like. And then we also do the in-place AWS for existing AWS customers, where you're going to see where you can take advantage of different services. And we'll look at a couple of those reports today. And that's also very quick. That's just a 1 week turnaround.
Okay, that's actually very fast. And what happens if a customer, let's say, can you handle customers that have legacy applications or custom, like in-house created applications?
Yeah, Matilda is going to support those enterprise applications like Oracle and Microsoft. But where we really shine is where the complexity and size and difficulty of projects increases. That's where our automation really is of the highest value. And we do support legacy applications. We have countless success stories with helping organizations with their enterprise and legacy applications. And then just a note on storage before we get into the case study. I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to just spend a second talking about how, when you're weighing your options before a migration around storage and FSx for ONTAP, obviously, as we mentioned, a current NetApp customer can benefit from the continuity of FSxN. But what we see in the industry is there are so many of these apples to oranges conversations where an organization needs to weigh um, organizational changes and different types of things that are really difficult from an automated tool. Matilda is going to help demonstrate where those savings can be, where the manual approaches or infrastructure only assessments are going to fail, or they're going to be difficult to do, or just get it wrong. So Matilda is going to bring an independent view with data-backed means to inform those types of decisions, where the organizations who aren't currently taking advantage of something like FSxN, they can now see options in terms of cost savings and future readiness that you don't get from a manual report, or that's impractical. And so service partners and CEOs and IT leaders, they can walk through exactly what it would look like if they wanted to take advantage of FSx and in that journey. And I think I wanted to just hit that before we go into this case study so that you have a little context about what we're looking at.
Yeah, let's look at the case study. Can you walk us through it? What are we
Yep.
seeing? Mhm.
Yeah, so this slide is taken from our AWS in-place optimization report, and it's really like a reality check for an enterprise. So in this sample assessment, we've uncovered, you can see on the right, 7.4 million in annual storage waste. And
Impressive.
that's spread across 8 different inefficiency patterns that we're diving into on the left. And so what you
Mhm.
see on the bottom right is that the takeaway is that by taking, with FSxN, you can take advantage of the 2.8 million in waste, and you can recover that in just 2.2 months. So that's the short-term recoverable savings. And you're taking advantage of that through the snapshot sprawl, through the over-provisioned IOPS, and through low change rate volumes that are discussed in the gray in detail. But as an SI partner or AWS customer, this is a really powerful report. It's giving you a receipt to show this 38-40% savings with ROI in just a couple of months. And so these projects have a huge ROI in the short to medium term, let alone the long term. And with the funding uh, from AWS, this is just a really powerful way to have a big difference made in your cost.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump right in. I think Rajesh, we're gonna go to the demo. So I'm gonna stop sharing and give it to you, Rajesh.
Thanks, Karen. Let me see. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. As Ben and Paul brought up, right, the product has the ability to profile the complete estate of the customer. Like as we are talking, either hyperscalers, different, or different data center environments, including container factories like Pivotal or Tanzu or others. It is a one-stop shop where we can actually have a complete analysis of the entire estate of the customer. And the richness, like Paul brought up, it's not just showing from the lens of the infra of all of these assets, but more importantly, what the collection is from a migration standpoint, from an application point of view as well, and gives us a full context of what you are consuming, how the current application ecosystem looks like, what are the different application components, and what sort of dependencies exist between them, including generating the corresponding infrastructure as a code, as well as app to app dependencies are brought in a single pane of glass. Another key factor, like we are talking about, not just from a application point of view, the other, as Ben brought up about OpenShift or about container platforms, the product currently profiles over 12 different container platforms and can give us assessments in the different classes on what can be done. And each of them can be going into the intricacy details to understand how that particular container platform has been set up and what are the key elements of it, so that we can rightly design on the target from application perspective, but how the workloads currently are using and what storages are being used, and so that it can be suggesting FSXN along with making it right fit onto the target. The assessments in a single place can also be available and be able to consume by the different users. As Paul brought up, we'll talk about different use cases. First one, when we are profiling a data center, the product profiles the complete estate, right? And gives us what the customer might be spending today and how they are actually, what is the total storage that they are consuming and so forth. If we are actually going with native services other than the FSX, how much it might cost for the entire ecosystem and what kind of savings the customers might get. If they are actually using FSX with on-tap, like what is the additional storage savings that they can be availed for the customers, and the overall savings can be brought in as well. This goes into the intricacy details about what type of plans and where you can save as part of this summary view. But along with that, we also give the user a complete view of from a storage alone. What is the total storage that you are using? How many workloads are analyzed? What are the different costs if we are actually using EBS in this case? And if we are going FSX, what kind of additional savings can be realized? In this case, they are actually seeing around 62% cost reduction just if they look from a storage angle. On the overall savings, they will maybe look at around 7 to 10%. But if it is just from a storage efficiency that is brought in this case, it is actually north of 60%. And it goes into the type of workloads, whether they are using root and non-root volumes that the particular application workloads are consuming, what type of applications are consuming based on the different stream of workloads running, so that what are the top 10 applications that may be consuming this storage, so that it can connect to the business users as well as the application teams more easily, and which workloads can be picked appropriately. Classification of, it's not looking around just the infra element, but if they are, as Ben brought up about databases, right? What database workloads are consuming and what percentage of the savings can be availed if we are going with the database services or application services and so forth like that. The product helps us qualify them and also categorize and give us what can be done for us to actually take those actions in the different spaces. And instead of looking at storage in an isolated mode, it brings in from an application context and on the overall ecosystem of the customer and help us execute the plans better. Similarly, when we are looking at the corresponding cost comparison, instead of giving here is the cost savings, what are the different structures where EBS shines, and from a blended perspective, how much it might be a cost. Like Brent earlier brought up, like say, for example, deduplication or others, what criteria has been used and is also explained so that the users are not making the decision in vacuum, but with the information details on what are the percentages that what auto-tiering policies are used or the compression and how much is the total cost is granularly given, both in an executive reports as well as in a summary, FXL and so forth, the artifact supporting documents as well. Similarly, this can be done in 3 different models where we are actually talking one, of course, from a data center to cloud that we were presenting, but it can also come up from the angles of where we are actually looking at within AWS, or when we are actually looking at other clouds to AWS as well, how it can bring in the clear value. The use cases that we have seen in this particular case that Paul brought up is more from within the AWS, what are the different accounts that are profiled, and qualified workloads that are being looked at across the different regions and so forth is analyzed here as well. And it gives into the inefficiency patterns and how we can bring in FSX with the additional value props and so forth like that. I'll open for questions, Karen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rajesh. We do have 2 questions in the chat. Most of them have been, the previous ones have been already answered. Let me just share my screen. But we can, I don't know if you want to look at them. It says in case how to deploy Matilda in physical boxes or virtual appliance, or is it deployed in the AWS mainframe? I see you're answering, but I think we can answer
Right.
live. Mm-hmm.
So essentially, like the product is built on microservices-based architecture. It runs in container platforms. So all of those options are possible. The product can be deployed or running in AWS estate, ideally in a SaaS estate. It will be running on AWS. And the second option, it can run on physical servers, or it can be on a hosted in a customer environment, on a virtual environment in a VMware, or what the customer prefers. So different ways of deployments are possible. We do not need mainframe, but we support ideally it runs on Linux platforms. In all of those 3 cases, it is possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What's the other question?
In use, it's written how to deploy Matilda in physical boxes or virtual appliance.
Right. All 3 are possible,
Yes,
right? How does the
exactly.
blended within AWS, how to use it? So the AWS profiling, it is done through the API. So for any of the hyperscalers, first we get all of the data, usage statistics, and so forth from API based, and it extracts all of the resources that are currently running, how much we are spending, customer is spending, and what is the usage statistics for the last 30 to 60 days information is extracted from the API. To get deeper analysis about those elements, we have different modules to actually get insights from a compute elements as well. And in AWS, as well as any of the other hyperscaler analysis, we do not need to even install Matilda. It will be actually extracted through the API model itself.
That's
And
interesting, Rajesh. I actually had one of my colleagues ask me about that the other day. So you can just query all of the other cloud resources, not just virtual machines and bare metal servers, but data lakes and other competitor native services and map those to AWS and do the TCO and the migration analysis.
absolutely, Ben. And
Okay,
it
wow.
is, yeah, it is, that's a key thing is, and it does not look at once you have access, right? The ability to have the data access for the last 30 to 60 days, it also speeds our analysis from an assessment and from a migration planning as well. First, overall, it gets the comprehensive details, not just like you rightly brought up, not about just compute, but the overall estate and all of those resources, what the customer is currently spending, and along with that, what is the usage statistics of that. And when we rightly design for AWS, it can actually give us what is the to be footprint looks like. And if they would like to go forward, the product has the ability to generate that as an infra as a code as well. So it's pretty comprehensive from that angle.
Okay, so that actually gives you the right sizing optimization view of, hey, you have more memory or CPUs than you need over here. There's a cheaper or better fit on the AWS side.
Absolutely,
Okay,
Ben.
great.
Right. Um, I don't see any more questions. Um, I don't know if there's anything else you guys would like to add, or I don't know, people in the audience, if you have something else on your mind that you would like to ask us, send us your questions. Um, and if not, then I think we can call it a day.
I always
Remember,
like to
by the
wrap
way,
with like a
yes,
call to
before,
action, Karen,
yes,
right? So like someone asked about demos or maybe they want to get started, like how and I know we dropped an email address in the chat, but how do folks learn more if they want to get their hands on the product or if they want to get a hold of AWS or NetApp or Matilda? What is that call to action?
I
yeah,
think the
okay,
best course of action is to uh, contact that sales at matildacloud.com email. We have a team, a business development team that's going to take you up on that. And whether you have a partner that you're already working with, you can bring them into the conversation, or you can talk to Matilda. We have a network of trusted partners that we bring into engagements, and we can match you with one that will help you with your needs.
mhm,
And just to add, right, Matilda has not just the demo environments, workshops, and training, so we can actually enable each one of you on how to consume and what it can be lively experimented by your teams as well. So let us know, as Paul said, yes, that email can be used as an initial communication, but we'll set you up from a different angle how you can get your hands dirty. And consume the value of FSxN or generate for your customers.
yeah. And from our side at NetApp, you will get a survey after this, and just click on the option that you would like to be contacted, and you will get contacted by someone from our team. So just let us know. Just answer the feedback form. It actually helps us to improve. So just fill out the form. Let us know if you would like to be contacted, and you will get someone from our team will be in contact with you.
All right. Thanks, Karen. I think I learned something today too.
That's great. That's great. So anyway, thank you everyone for participating, for being with us. Please fill out the form. Once you leave, you'll get that pop up and just fill out the feedback form. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.